What is up, everyone? This is Ray Delucci with the Repertoire Report. Welcome to the podcast. Good to see everyone on another week. Hope you enjoyed Justin's breakdown of the MAD Food Conference last week, the MAD 7 Symposium. Really great feedback on that episode, a lot of interesting points. I think the biggest thing for me is just seeing how much you can learn from going to something like that. Like, I really appreciated Justin taking the time to go out there, you know, learn what he had to learn, connect, and then come back and tell us about it. To give you insight on, Justin's dedication, he landed and was dealing with like sickness and a bunch of other stuff, and he still came on the show to give us that information. And I really thought that was pretty awesome. And so I wanted to say thank you to him. And welcome back to the episode. So this is a solo repertoire report. This is something where we're going to talk about news, but we also have a different ending to the podcast today. So pulling up here, if you follow us at Join Repertoire on Instagram and you want to ever come on and discuss anything on the podcast, reach out to us there. Reach out to us via email. But my guest at the back end of this podcast is going to be Bryan Zachary Sparks. Had a really good time talking with him. We talk about familiarity and the concept of how that is helping him guide his menu forward. And so I'm very excited for you to hear that. So if you stick around to the end of the episode, you'll hear about a 15, 20-minute conversation between myself and Bryan on that. So be sure to stick around. All right, let's start this off with first, what I like to look at is the National Restaurant Association's Restaurant Performance Index. So if you don't know, this is a monthly index that tracks the overall success of restaurants in the month past, usually a month and a half behind, actually. And so they have published that the Restaurant Performance Index increased 0.9% in April. So the National Restaurant Association's Restaurant Performance Index posted a moderate increase in April, but continued to signal an uncertain outlook for business conditions in the months ahead. So a monthly composite index that tracks the health of the U.S. restaurant industry stood at 99.7 in April, up 0.9% from a level of 98.9 in March. So restaurant operators reported a modest net increase in same-store sales in April, but customer traffic readings remained dampened. Looking ahead, restaurant operators have a mixed outlook for sales in the coming months, but their expectation for the overall economy continues to lean pessimistic. And basically what this means is that, the expectation index, which measures restaurant operators' 6-month outlook for 4 industry indicators, stood at 100, which is up 1.2% from the previous month. And the rebound in this is for a forward-looking component, was driven by a somewhat more optimistic outlook for sales in the months ahead, though operators remain downbeat about the economy. There's a general worry about the economy, what the forces of the tariffs are going to look like, where spending is going to look like. Obviously, cost of living is very high. So all these economic factors that do have real-world impact on what consumers purchase, it's going to be seen in the summer months how consumers react to it. Are they going to keep up spending? Are they going to keep going out to restaurants? Or are they going to find other ways to dine out? So just an important update. I thought it was interesting, to say the least. I think the big takeaway for me is that, April stayed strong, but we will see moving forward what happens. So my first major story is from Axios DC. This actually was published in April 14, 2025. I know we've talked a lot about the Michelin Guide on this podcast, and I didn't know about this story specifically. And so the story is basically Not Worth the Stars: Why Virginia Said No to Michelin. And I think the framework of this for this story is that Virginia was offered to be a part of the Michelin Guide. It's interesting, right? It's interesting because I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, but the Michelin Guide sometimes charges cities or tourism boards to bring the Michelin Guide to their region, especially in new regions, obviously. So these arrangements are often labeled as partnerships or promotional agreements, and the payments help cover the cost of inspectors, logistics, and launching the guide. In return, cities get global culinary visibility and a level of prestige. Now, it's important to note, and Justin had made this point, that just because Michelin comes to your city doesn't mean you automatically get a starred restaurant. It simply means that your city the restaurants in your city are being reviewed. And so what I found, or your state for that matter, from Virginia. So basically the story behind this is that Virginia is notably absent from the forthcoming Southern Restaurant Guide, that Michelin announced back in April, which we had covered. And so Axios goes on to say why it matters. The state tourism office declined to participate in the pay-to-play guide, which is interesting how they worded that. A whopping $360,000 to be included. And the big picture they share is that a Michelin star is one of the restaurant world's top honors, as we all know. In recent years, Michelin's American coverage has often been contingent on which tourism board ponies up cash. The payments, dubbed partnership money, started with a $600,000 payout from Visit California in 2019, which the Michelin Guide's director told the New York Times helped offset the cost of reviews. So for Virginia tourism officials, declining a deal with Michelin came down to money, a $120,000 payment over 3 years. Payments over 3 years, leading to that total amount. So the decision was also about responsible stewardship of taxpayer dollars. VTC is a state-funded organization, and so basically, what's interesting is that when Michelin launched in D.C., which is close to Virginia, they never had to pay for coverage. Michelin spokesperson tells Axios, as in this article, that while the organization works with destination marketing organizations in some areas, this is not the case for all Michelin guides, and there are no partnerships in the district, including for last year's hotel guide. But Michelin's presence in D.C., they continue, isn't just about great restaurants. Upon its launch, Michelin's then international director, Michael Ellis, told Washingtonian that Michelin's tire business, ironically its bread and butter, was a factor in picking destinations. And so for basically, Axios then goes and speaks to a bunch of high-profile Virginia chefs, and who they spoke with, they were okay with the Old Dominion's decision. In Staunton, two-time James Beard finalist Ian Bowden runs the kind of ambitious destination restaurants, The Shack and Maud and the Bear, that Michelin might award. A star would help business, Bowden tells Axios, but he also admits he's tired of shelling out to food festivals and publications for exposure. And then he goes on to say, I'm kind of proud of the state for saying F that to Michelin. So it's interesting, right? This idea, I don't think the general public, and I don't even know if a lot of people in the food industry realize that Michelin operates a lot of the times on a pay-to-play scheme. I shouldn't say scheme. Pay-to-play contract partnership. Not for every city, but especially for newer cities, what they do is they look to the tourism board to fund the guide to come there and review their restaurants. And the argument you can make for Michelin is it brings prestige. If you get a Michelin-starred restaurant, then people will obviously travel there, and so on and so forth. What is interesting, though, is that, and I can see the argument for it, because at the end of the day, like I said, you're not guaranteed a starred restaurant. So you could pay for this and have Michelin, give their recommendations, their big gourmands, but never give a star. But at the same point, if the state of Virginia pays for Michelin to rate their restaurants, and they pay for them to be reviewed, and basically you are guaranteed a star, then doesn't that discredit the validity and the integrity of the guide? Isn't it then just pay to play? So I don't necessarily think that states or tourism boards paying for Michelin to come to their state or their city isn't, I don't think that's something that's like pay to play where like Michelin's integrity has been, upended. And I do understand that Michelin has to pay its workers in some capacity, or their reviewers. But at the same time, there is also the counter argument, well, if Michelin isn't going to go to states or cities whose tourism board don't pay them directly to review the restaurants, then what's the point? And I think that chef had a really good point. It's like, how many times do chefs have to go out and get this exposure at festivals or publications and give up something of themselves, of their restaurant, of their product, of their business, just to simply get noticed? And of course, you could argue that's the name of the game, that we're in hospitality, that's why we do this. For Michelin being such an integral part of the food industry, I personally find it a little, the best word is icky, like that a state, in order to get a rating, has to pay them however much money. If they're truly a guide based on great food, they are attached to a giant tire company, but if they are a guide truly worried about the best food no matter where, or trying to elevate cuisine, or trying to find the most impactful cuisine, especially in the United States, then they should go into Virginia without needing much payment. That's my personal opinion. Some can disagree, but it is interesting. I'll leave the link in the bio, but it is something that I think is worth noting, because the state of Virginia not being included in the Michelin Guide for southern states is a big deal. Obviously Virginia is part of the South. It is something that you know could have repercussions for how Southern food is represented, and there could be a lot of people that kind of miss the idea that you know, like Southern food, elevated Southern food doesn't live in Virginia. So I could definitely see all that go down. So it is unfortunate, um, but I also can commend and respect Virginia for not wanting to go ahead and pay this fee, especially with taxpayer dollars. So it's just it's a tough situation. My personal thought is that Michelin should be rating restaurants regardless if they get tourism board money or taxpayer money. That's just my opinion. I have a lot of issues with the Michelin Guide and what it feels and represents within the industry. I would love to hear your thoughts. All right, next up. So, an interesting story that was posted in Bloomberg today. So, Whole Foods supplier hack leaves empty shelves, stalls forklifts. Now, why am I sharing this? I think this is the perfect story as to how fragile our food system can be and how having so many different cogs in the machine out there, if one of them goes down, then the whole thing kind of goes down, or parts of a major food grocery store chain goes down. And so I just thought this was something that, food for thought. So United Natural Foods Inc., a grocery distributor for Amazon's Whole Foods market, is working to bring systems back online by June 15th and resume product deliveries after a cyber attack disrupted its operation, leaving some store shelves barren of ice cream, bread, and other goods. So the Providence, Rhode Island-based chain shut down IT systems and limited shipping orders after determining on June 5th that intruders had penetrated its network. The United Natural Foods, or UNFI, is working with customers to find short-term solutions wherever possible. They also reported the incident to the FBI. The company doesn't anticipate any delays in payroll, according to a person familiar with the matter, who spoke on the condition that they not be identified. In Monday email to customers, a UNFI representative said they are working toward the goal of returning to full operational capacity by June 15th or sooner and apologize for any disruption to their clients' businesses. The cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike Holdings is helping UNFI respond to the incident. So basically, the quote here is, "We believe we are managing the incident capably with a very strong team of inside and outside professionals, including specialized experts." A UNFI forklift operator who asked not to be named because they weren't authorized to speak on the matter said they were sent home on Friday as a result of the hack. Managers were unable to call staff to tell them to avoid coming in because of the systems being down. Some forklift drivers were asked to return to work on Sunday and resorted to pen and paper to prepare shipments for when UNFI is able to fill orders again. Basically, at a Whole Foods, and then Bloomberg goes on to report, at a Whole Foods in Manhattan, shelves that normally held ice cream, white bread, and yogurt were empty. Store employees declined to comment on the matter. Whole Foods is working to restock its shelves as quickly as possible. And there's an end quote here by Andrew Howell, who's the vice president of government affairs at the cyber firm SentinelOne. They're talking about such incidents demonstrate how the ease of buying groceries relies on tight supply chains. And he goes on to say, one of the biggest pieces of magic of the American economy, particularly in the last 20 years, is our ability to have just-in-time delivery of goods right across the country, through neighborhoods and around the world. And when you see situations like this happen, you realize how frail that system becomes. It's a really, really important message. It just goes to show how fragile and how limited our food system really is if something breaks. A cybersecurity attack on a company like this that supports whole food shipping, grocery distributor, is shut down. People in Manhattan can't buy bread, yogurt, ice cream. Scary times. It speaks to the fact that our food system has become so intertwined, both nationally and internationally. There's so much that that depends on the food system to work, the system that we've built to work. And so when we have a situation like this, it's scary. It shows that even though you can have excellent security as a giant company, you can still be attacked through a cyber attack, and it can truly impact business. So just something to be aware of. Thought it was interesting, and just like I said, shows how how fragile our food system is. Here's a fun story, and it's mainly because it's my favorite candy of all time, besides Kit Kats. And so this is from Food Dive. This is on June 9th. And this story is a fun one. It says how Nerds Gummy Clusters became the candy aisle's biggest hit. With sales nearing $1 billion, the once unloved candy under Nestle has thrived under new owner Ferrara, overtaking Skittles to become the top sugar confectioner on the market. These are amazing. Just a quick backstory. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I was going last year into a competition, and my friend Erin, who I've rolled with many times, she brought these Nerds Gummy Clusters, and before the competition, she's like, have a few, you want your sugar up. And then I ate them throughout the competition, and they were just so good, and I've been hooked ever since. I literally can't buy them, because I'll eat the whole bag within a day, just like totally down them in a day. So this article by Christopher Doring over at Food Dive shares the following. So when Nutella maker Ferrero purchased Nestle's candy business for nearly $3 billion in 2018, the acquisition added popular brands such as Butterfinger, Baby Ruth, and 100 Grand to its roster of sweets. And while all the attention went to this offerings, Nerds, a product largely seen as an afterthought by its prior owner, they saw that it could be turned out to be the sweetest brand of them all. So Nerds is on track to hit more than $900 million in sales this year, a more than 1,700% increase from the $50 million in sales the brand was generating when it was first incorporated into Ferrara, which is owned by a Ferrero-affiliated holding company. The unprecedented surge is directly attributed to the widely popular Nerds Gummy Clusters, which represented the first meaningful innovation for the once sleepy brand in years. Nerds Gummy Clusters are now the top sugar confectioner on the market, overtaking Mars Wrigley's Skittles. And so Katie Duffy, the vice president of global brands, says, we knew we had something that was kind of special, but we really, truly had no idea how special it was or that it would grow as fast or as big as it has become. The success of the clusters, which are gummy, ensconced, and crunchy Nerds candies, wasn't a given. Initial tests weren't particularly encouraging, with consumers struggling to comprehend the multi-textural eating experience. Duffy goes on to say that we looked at the scores that came back from this concept. It was not all sunshine and rainbows. We were really trying to understand, okay, why are they not getting it? So basically then the company remains hopeful, and after the treats proved to be an early hit with their own employees, they tweaked the visuals and the language of the packaging, and then finally Nerds Gummy Clusters started resonating with testers. So the candy has proven to be a hit. Movie theaters and airports, I can attest. I literally now when I go to the movies, I get a bucket of popcorn, I get Gummy Clusters, I open the Gummy Clusters, put them in the popcorn, thank me later. And they have helped attract older consumers and new snacking occasions to the brand. Most surprisingly, some distance runners and endurance athletes have used them as a booster in place of such supplements such as Goo Energy Gel. Like I just said with Jiu-Jitsu, great, they're interesting, they're sugary, they give you a burst of energy. Probably any candy can do it, but they just feel right. I don't know why. Sponsor me, Nerds Gummy Clusters for my Jiu-Jitsu gi. Despite the recent sales boom, Duffy says there is plenty of growth left for the Nerds brand. Ferrari is rolling out more seasonal gummy cluster varieties, which I have seen. Is it hopeful Nerds Gummy Clusters can grab more shelf space at existing stores to better match its product velocity? Ferrara is also planning its next big launch under the Nerds banner later this year with Nerds Juicy Gummy Clusters, which I am super stoked about. Snack contains juice in the center and is 3 times the size of the gummy cluster. That sounds insane. Nerds Gummy Clusters, I love them. They're my kryptonite. That and Coke Zero. If you've had them, obviously comment and let me know. But what a wonderful candy. All right, lastly. So my last story is from the Nation's Restaurant News. This is by Scott Greenberg, and it's titled, Using AI to Write Help Wanted Posts That Actually Work. How to Use Artificial Intelligence to Craft Emotionally Compelling, Human-Centric Job Ads That Attract the Right People. I thought this was interesting. So Scott poses the problem that recruiting hourly employees is harder than it used to be, with fierce competition in the market, having high turnover and staffing issues. So he goes on to argue that a help wanted post isn't just a job listing; it's a marketing piece. And like any good marketing, its purpose is to make someone feel something. If your post doesn't spark interest or emotion, you're just adding to the noise. So they go on to say that basically, AI isn't a replacement for the human element; it's a tool to amplify it. I have my thoughts on that, but as of now, I do use AI and how I work, and I think it's important to enhance your work. And so they go on to say, use well, AI can help you clarify your message, improve your tone, and express more of your workplace culture in a single job post. So his problem that he identifies with job postings is they're painfully generic. They're dry lists of tasks, pay rates, and qualifications, usually written in corporate speak or copied from a template. And yet we know that when people choose where to work, they're not just looking for a paycheck. They're looking for a vibe, a feeling, a place they can belong. This is often overlooked. I think this is a great instinct and recognition of an issue in restaurants. Restaurant operators sometimes feel like their jobs shouldn't, it's just a job, but no, many people look for to be driven to be a part of something, even if it is an hourly job. So he goes on to argue, and I thought this was interesting. Use Aristotle's hiring framework: logos, ethos, pathos. So Aristotle taught that the most persuasive messages appeal to three elements of the rhetorical triangle: logos, which is logic; ethos, which is credibility; and pathos, which is emotion. So he breaks these down. Logos is the facts: job duties, pay, schedule, location. Be clear and specific. Ethos is why you're a credible and trustworthy employer. Highlight your value, your company value, the team culture, your reputation, and any awards. And then pathos: what will the job feel like? Use language that conveys purpose, belonging, fun, or personal growth to prospective employees. He says most ads stop at logos, but the most effective ones use all three. So he says ChatGPT tools are great, but they're only as good as the prompt you give them. So here are some useful prompts to get better wanted copy, and actually that was interesting. So prompt one: make it feel like a commercial. Write a help wanted post for a fast casual restaurant that's looking for energetic, reliable team members. Emphasize our fun, inclusive culture, and flexible hours. Make it feel like a commercial that would make a Gen Z job seeker excited to apply. And this shifts the tone from formal to fun, perfect for platforms like Instagram or TikTok when he shares. We just talked about the next generations of chefs coming. How we speak to them to get them into the workplace is super important. Number two, we write this to sound human. So here's our current job ad. So you copy and put it to ChatGPT. Rewrite it in a friendly conversational tone and make it sound like something an inspiring team leader would say to a friend. I think that's very interesting. And then this next prompt is cool. Write a persuasive help wanted post using Aristotle's logos, ethos, and pathos, actually getting direct. Include clear job details, short statement of our company culture, and credibility. And this is, it talks about the emotion as well and how this creates a credible yet emotionally stimulating job posting. So what does this all mean? And a final thought from Scott is that a help wanted post is your first impression. It's the moment someone decides whether they can picture themselves as a part of your team. If it's stale or generic, you've lost them. But if it's emotionally engaging, specific, and real, you've just taken the first step in building a better team. And I totally agree. Use AI, play with prompts is what he says. And I would say that, yeah, I think a big thing that people see AI as an all-in game. They either see AI as something that's going to take away their work and so they can't use it, or they see it as something they can trust 100% and don't ever tinker with it. And obviously, with anything, the middle is the best. Using AI to enhance your work, enhance your output, enhance your efficiency, how you market your restaurant, all of that is super critical to your success and what you're looking for out of these positions. And I think that utilizing AI in a smart way such as this can help you get more employees to respond to your job postings, retain employees, and create meaningful conversations in the interview process. So really good stuff. So those are all my stories. Like I said, we're about to go into our first guest of the Repertoire report, the new rebrand. But before I go into that, I do want to say thank you all for listening to this podcast. It has been tremendous to see the support. If you all could if you're on YouTube, or comment, love the conversation. I've had a couple of them on the YouTube channel. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Share with your friends in the food industry. And if you're interested in all coming on the show, join Repertoire on Instagram or TikTok. But more so, just love the dialogue we get to have, and really looking to have people come on and share different aspects of the food industry, whether you're in restaurants, whether you're in manufacturing, R&D, whatever it is. Love having conversations and love learning more about what you all want to hear about. So thank you all for listening to the show. We are going to get to my guest, and we'll see you on the next Repertoire Report. So Bryan, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on. And just would love to start out by having you introduce yourself and, telling us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so as you said, my name is Bryan. I am the executive chef and kind of operations director for Wandering Vine and our future concepts that we kind of have pocketed in the works right now.
Awesome.
We
And where
are
are you all
we are
located?
based, yeah, we're based out of Kansas City.
Okay. Chiefs, are you a Chiefs fan?
Who isn't?
Oh, I mean, I'm a Bills fan, so it's a little tough for me.
I
But
was gonna say the answer usually is everybody outside of Kansas City is not a Chiefs fan.
I think
Uh,
Buffalo has a little bit more of a bone to pick with you all, but it'd be what it'd be.
that's fair. That's fair. You guys gave us Xavier Worthy, uh, and we've had some great games against you guys.
Yeah, no, it's been tough to watch, but no, nevertheless, we'll get into cooking. Reason I wanted to have you on, Brian, we spoke on Instagram. Yeah, I've done some content around the idea of familiarity regarding restaurants. So, can you speak to kind of what your goal is when you're serving food and this idea of how familiarity has kind of rejuvenated your business?
Yeah, so I think we kind of take a look at it from two perspectives. One, I think there's a large chunk of the culinary scene right now that's chasing novelty. They're always trying to find the next edge. What is going to be hot 6 months from now? And I will caveat all of this by saying that there is absolutely a place for that in kitchens and restaurants. For us, we have found success and honestly just pure happiness in what we're doing more when we stop focusing on getting people to visit and getting them to feel like they're returning somewhere. So for us, getting people to feel like when they walk into our place, it is a return to whatever they're returning to, whatever they feel like they're returning to, versus a fresh concept, if that makes sense.
Can you give an example of how in your restaurants you manage that, whether respecting to front of house, back of house? How are you instilling that within your team?
Yeah, so I think first of all, we take menu design a little differently. When we do menu changes, we're not looking to change menu items so much as we're looking to evolve the menu items. Whereas some people will kind of scrap dishes every 4 to 6 months and come up with a brand new concept where you've gotten your entire team learning how to do a brand new plating, brand new components. Sourcing gets crazy. Um, we take a dish and it'll go through 3 to 5 different evolutions before we might decide to move on from it, if we do decide to move on from it. So I think our staff being super comfortable with the dishes makes it really easy for them to fall in love with them and keep falling in love with them. And then in turn, that makes it easier for them to sell.
Is there a specific dish you have in mind when you're bringing that example up?
Yeah, so we have a dish on our menu called focaccia pizzetta. Um, in essence, it's fancy pizza. Um, we have over the course of the last year and a half, it's taken a few different evolutions. One, it kind of just started off as like a tomato bread. We had some really great heirloom tomatoes and we make our own focaccia in house, so let's do that with some olive oil and some good salt, and it was good. We then decided to take it up a notch and make our own ricotta. So we were doing warm scoops of lemon ricotta on top of it. And then its current format, we last year towards the end of tomato season, we bought about 900 pounds of heirloom tomato seconds. So it was the stuff that was going to go in the trash. We ended up making pomodoro sauce out of all of it, and we vacuum sealed it and froze it. So we're still currently working off of
That's
that.
awesome.
And it was our way to help the farmer make sure nothing went in the trash and to make sure that he got something for his product. And it's also our way as somebody in the dead of the Midwest. It's really hard to do farm to table in January.
Hmm.
So how do we maintain our connection to the farmers, and to everything around us in January and February. And so we find kind of little tricks to use products. Um, so we make our own ricotta. we take the whey that comes off of that and we use that as the water that goes into the focaccia base.
Wow.
So nothing really goes in the trash on this dish. Um, and it's kind of in our minds reached the peak of its evolution. Um, but it's pizza. It's
Yeah.
We're allowed to, as chefs, really creatively flex our muscles on this dish because we found clever ways to use products. But in essence, people are eating pizza, and
Hmm.
so it provides them a level of comfort and us a level of kind of driving technique.
Okay. And when you, when 900 pounds, sorry, the 900 pounds of tomatoes you purchased, big purchase for the restaurant, obviously a decent purchase. Have you found, how I want to ask this, like you have that ingredient in your inventory now. Do you feel like the purchase that you made kind of helped save some cost in the moment, like later on, like in January? Like you made that purchase in the summer, obviously, or end of the season. You're using this product all the way throughout the year. Do you kind of feel like that purchase saved you some costs as a restaurant while also keeping the integrity of your menu the way you want it in a down month for produce?
Yeah, I think anytime you can have consistency in your inventory over the course of a long-term period, the better your food cost is going to be.
Yeah.
I think, and I've worked at some restaurants where they're like, okay, we're going to completely flip the entire menu every 4 months. And inevitably, after a few years, you just have this like backlog of ingredients and components
Yeah.
that are either freezer burnt or they've been sitting on the dry storage shelf forever. And you're like, I don't know what to do with this. It was on the menu a year and a half ago and probably never going to go back on. So even though it's on inventory, it's still dead money.
Yeah.
So for us, using the same components and the same ingredients and just finding clever ways to work with them, or being blessed enough to be in a place where we can purchase 900 pounds of something and uh, break it down into the pomodoro sauce and then freeze it. Uh, it allows us to have consistency. And what I have found in my career is whether or not it's through how you clean, how you cook, but also how you order, consistency can be a make or break situation in a restaurant.
When I think of the idea of familiarity, which you brought up before, and consistency as well, when I came out of culinary school and I was working in restaurants, I had a chef who I looked up to a ton, and he had crazy accolades of experience. What I saw him be most passionate about was going back to these recipes that maybe his grandmother did, or maybe that he used to, that were like local staples that he could then tweak and bring a new version of it to the market, where it's still like was something that was memorable of something of his past, but he brought like breathed new life into it per se. And so when you're looking at your menu development in 2025, this idea of familiarity, why do you think that is so potent when it comes to how customers are receiving your food?
So it's funny that you speak about something your grandmother used to make. We have my grandmother's cornbread on our menu.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, and everybody just I've had a dozen people say like this reminds me of. And for me, that is the joy of cooking. I There are people out there that get joy and pushing the limits. For me, it's about creating and resuscitating memories
Hmm.
in the people that are joining us. Um, but as I'm looking at 2025 and uh, why I feel like familiarity is going to be so important is I don't know if you live in our world right now, but it's kind of hectic.
Hmm.
It's chaos layered with more chaos, and I think people are craving that the family environment, the sitting down at the kitchen table. Um, Now they want it done differently than they can do it at their house, obviously, and they want it done in a way that is going to make them feel important. Um, and they want to be catered to, but they definitely want to feel like they're going to grandma's house or they're going to Sunday dinner, uh, because that evokes a time of stability in their lives that I think a lot of us are kind of struggling with finding at the moment.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Justin and I have done some podcasts recently, and I think one of the cool ones, and maybe this is a solo one. I was talking about how Shake Shack is poised to be a really big winner in the in this year out of all like the fast casuals because they hit their value of item to price point on their menu. And so, I think and you give me your insight in this. I think when you are chasing breaking a new boundary, or you're chasing like pure profit, you're on either ends of the spectrum of more likely missing or more likely not delivering on what customers need. And the one is a risk to innovation, which is great, but might not be what most people need. And the other, just chasing pure profit and giving the lowest common denominator, is just it is what it is. I don't know. There's much more to say to it, but I think the sweet spot, especially in hospitality, is this idea of enhanced familiarity. And so, do you believe that in the next, like, say, half decade of the 2020s, do you believe that that's going to win out as like the defined way that many restaurant operators focus their menus?
Well, I think it's going to come down to that one word that you used right there is hospitality.
Yeah,
Why are people doing this? Because it is grueling. It is tiring. It is rarely um, met with praise. It is mostly thankless. Why are people doing this restaurant thing? Is it for pure profit? Because if so, like you said, you'll see it very clearly. The people that are striving for hospitality and for that to be the um, and for everything else to be secondary to why they're doing it. I think those are the people that you'll find succeed. And when you look at Shake Shack, I mean, Danny Myers is a genius, not only when it comes to menu development and the technical aspect of it, um, but I've read his blogs on LinkedIn. I study him. Uh,
yeah,
he truly cares about the experience of the people that walk into his store. Um, we opened up a restaurant, and it's one thing that I heard him talk about. We opened up a restaurant with an open kitchen concept, um, probably years and years ago when I was with somebody else, and we sat in every single seat in that restaurant
hmm.
and looked around, and everybody made notes as to what they saw. Uh, and I got to tell you, we found probably 30 or 40 things that nobody thought to catch from different angles and different seats. Um, and it's about fine tuning the guest experience.
Yeah.
And so I think when you look in the next 5 years, I think the people that really care about fine tuning that guest experience, uh, and I think Shake Shack is going to be one of them because of that, they're going to be the ones that are leading the next evolution of what it's like to be in the restaurant industry.
I remember I fell into this trap when I was younger in my culinary career that even outside of restaurants, that the greatest hospitality comes from like fine dining settings. But you can make great hospitality anywhere, really. It just depends on your intentionality and the effort you're willing to put in it. I'd ask as we wrap up, as we have people on, I kind of this idea of kind of furthering learning or furthering interest. Anything you'd want to share regarding what's inspiring you now, whether it be a piece of media, a book, music, or something that you think someone should go read in regards to food or even just outside of it?
Yeah, so I think, and there's a really great article that just came out, and I've had a chance to skim it, but it's this thought behind using Chat GPT.
Hmm.
Uh, it has Grant Achatz and Jenna Tomaska discussing the use of artificial intelligence and it kind of has the the industry torn a little bit. Um, is it cheating? Is it taking away the creativity that as chefs like we should be known for? Um, and I've used it a lot
Yeah.
as we develop new concepts. Um, and I, from a learning technique, I would argue that it is something that we are going to have to use.
Yeah.
Because have you ever tried to explain a restaurant concept to an engineer, an architect, or it's impossible because this
No.
stuff lives in our mind for years and it just
Yeah.
becomes part of who we are. And trying to explain that can be difficult. Um, I use it as a collaborator. So if I've got 6 ingredients, I'll say I really want to do this with it. I'm struggling to develop a crunchy concept for this dish, and it'll give me a fresh take on it. And for me, it's no different than talking to another chef and coming up with the idea. Um, but I think chefs need to start playing around on that a little bit more and finding ways that aren't like, hey, develop me a new menu, because
Hmm.
that's a little scammy. But finding ways to use it that still kind of honor the creativity backbone that we should have, while pushing this industry where it needs to go, which is uh, provide more work life balance, provide more comfortability for the staff, and to provide the best possible product that we can.
Yep. And more utility can be used in many administrative ways. It's just, yeah. I think people think of ChatGPT in the restaurant industry. It's like, oh, chefs are going to use it to like come up with menus. It's like, no, but it could be the reason. It could be a way that you plug in some numbers and it helps you identify where your menu is lacking or where you can save some money or where, you know, or like to your point, just ideation, helping you kind of get an anchor to something, a new recipe or a new concept.
Yeah, and I think even from taking it a 1 degree further, like ChatGPT, AI, social media. 50 years ago, 30 years ago, I didn't know what was happening in Barcelona. I didn't know what was happening in the culinary scene in Japan. I didn't know what was happening one town over. Now I get the chance to. I have chef friends in Chicago that I've never met, and we will run dishes past each other. Um, I have I can see what the best restaurants in the world are doing at any given second, and I get to have conversations with people in Buffalo that I never would have had social media not existed. So I think this idea that we kind of need to gatekeep what we are. I think the more we can be open about what we're doing, how we're doing it, uh, I don't think there is a downside to this industry that approach will provide.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Well, thank you, Brian, for coming on. If you want to share any socials or where people can find you or your work, I think this would be the time.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want to check out Wandering Vine KC, we are a 120-year-old castle in the middle of Kansas City, serving up some refined comfort food. Come check us out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if you want to stay on real quick.